and welcome back to Plug and Play EV. We're in our trusty Bolt, and in this video we'll be looking at some of the ways this model, which is over 5 years old in design and delivery, still outshines some of its more modern rivals, including our brand new Hyundai IONIQ 5. Let's look at the things that the Bolt does better. So if you've watched any videos recently on the channel, it won't have escaped your notice that we are now also in a 2022 Hyundai IONIQ 5. Essentially, we needed something bigger, faster charging, and just generally more modern EV for our road trips. And we have a need for two cars at the moment. So we have the 2020 Bolt EV, which I'm in right now, and the 2022 Hyundai IONIQ 5. And obviously, being a newer model, with the Bolt EV being more than 5 years old now and into its 6th model year, the Hyundai IONIQ 5 does a lot of things better. That's to be expected, and we'll have a lot of videos coming up on where we've improved on things like road trips, charging times, comfort, all kinds of different areas. But before we get into all that kind of positive stuff, I wanted to focus on some of the things the Bolt EV does really well, and even better than a model that we've now done 2,500 miles in, but still feel that the Bolt EV does better, and why it's still one of the EVs to go to if you just want something that's affordable, easy to use, and still very good value for money if you can get one in the current climate. So the first thing to look at is efficiency. This car, while not the most efficient shape in the world, is very light, very kind of nimble. And GM did a lot of work in the design back in 2015 and 2016 to keep this light, make sure it was one of the longest range EVs on the market at the time. So when it came to market in the 2017 model that we first had, it was 238 miles of range, and when we went up to the 2020 model, that is 259 miles of EPA range. But frequently, even on the 2017 model with the older battery pack, which was supposed to do the 238 miles, we were able to get more than 300 miles of range in local driving, and the EPA average of 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which you need to achieve in terms of efficiency to make that 238 miles, was frequently exceeded. We have a bar set really of 4 miles per kilowatt hour being very good, anything above that being good efficiency and over the EPA, at least in the Bolt. And that's something that we can achieve very easily around town, even possible in summer on some of our road trips when we do some highway and some kind of local road. For a light, smallish hatchback with a lot of space inside for the footprint that it has, there's very good efficiency in this car. The IONIQ 5, not so much. We've only done one road trip so far, and we'll have all the numbers from that coming up, but it's much more in line with your kind of ID4s from what other owners are telling us. The models that are going towards a larger SUV shape, much heavier, much bigger battery pack, plus all the extra cabin comforts that we're going to get onto, liking in the IONIQ 5, it still can't match the Bolt EV for efficiency. So this thing, for all its limitations that people point out in terms of charging speed and the maximum being 55 kilowatts, the efficiency is there. This thing can deliver very similar range to the IONIQ 5, even at highway speeds, and it will use that 66 kilowatt hour battery pack in this version much more efficiently than the 77.4 kilowatt hour pack in the Hyundai IONIQ 5. So the next area where the Bolt EV beats out the IONIQ 5 is kind of a twofer, and it's down to rear visibility, what you can see behind the car. So there's been a lot made of the IONIQ 5 not having a rear glass wiper, which means that all kind of schmutz gets back there on the glass, and there's nothing to wipe it off. Now Hyundai has a kind of aero styling that they believe clears it. Really doesn't, from what we can see. It has effect at high speeds, but that thing will get dirty and messy, and you're going to have to wipe it off if you want really clear visibility. Now the Bolt EV has, not just the traditional wiper, which is not anything to necessarily write home about, but still comparing the two cars makes a difference. It has the rear view mirror camera. So you have your regular mirror, but at a flick of a switch, the rear view camera turns on, big wide view, very useful, not just around town, but specifically really on the highway, where you get a much wider view of the lanes behind you. You can use that to see what's in the other lanes when you're overtaking, pulling out, pulling onto the highway with pretty high definition, very good visibility. Still gets smutsed up, but even the rear view camera back there has a washer on it, so you can spray it off. So very good in terms of looking back and the visibility that that gives you, both from the camera and just the regular wiper. And then the third area where I feel like the Bolt does a little better after all the miles we've had in 2 Bolts versus obviously just the 2500 in the IONIQ 5 so far. If I take you over here, it will be the driver cluster information. Now, both have things in their favor, and there are ways that you can kind of monitor what's going on in terms of your energy usage and trends, so that's probably for another video. But purely the driver cluster here, I think the Bolt does really well, because it gives you this middle range estimate, which is, you know, what you should get if it all stays the same and conditions are what you're used to. This is your max in really good conditions. If you're suddenly starting to get better temperatures, if you are going downhill, whatever you're doing to improve efficiency, maybe going a bit slower, all that kind of stuff, you'll push up towards your max. And your minimum of it is if things change, you start to go uphill, it just suddenly gets a lot colder, you start using the heater, all this sort of stuff. And it will show you a trend line. It'll show the green kind of trend line appearing up this gray bar right here if you're heading towards the max, and it'll trend down with a yellow line towards the minimum. Now you should, I think this has always worked for us, you should always be able to achieve your minimum. So if you're looking at something like getting to the next charger with the minimum charge, then this is the one that you'll go with. And then your power graph on this side also shows you very clearly in terms of the number with kilowatts, and also how hard you're going up when you're accelerating or going up a hill, and what energy you're using, and what kind of regen you're getting when it goes down into the green here. So you get very, very specific and clearly laid out graphics as to the power and how you're using it, and how that is impacting your trend towards your range. And it's very, very intuitive. You know, all the information you want is there, and it's still not really cluttered. In the IONIQ 5, and you know, we may get used to this, we may see more kind of use out of it as we go. There is a trend line down the bottom which shows your kind of efficiency here, so that has been useful. And there are plenty of screens within the menus here that will show you how you're doing in terms of eco driving, so that's a different thing really. So it's something that I have pointed out in previous videos and reviews of the Bolt, but it's still a really good implementation, even all these years on, of efficiency data, range, energy use, all the kind of things that you would need to see put into one graphic and delivered straight to the driver without having to go into the menu items. And then a fairly simple one, but something that happens to be very useful for us here in Massachusetts winters, at least recently, is the rear heated seats in this Bolt EV. So not something we actually used very much on the 2017, as the kids had car seats back there and we covered them up a lot more, so really the rear heated seats back there weren't that useful. But over the last year or two, they've started to grow out of those, get into a place where we don't really need to cover the seats quite so prominently. So we have the option of them being able to turn on the rear heated seats in winter, gives an extra place for just to warm up a little bit, offset some of that energy loss to the cabin from the cabin heater, and just give another source of warmth in the Boston winters. And another one that's not that easy to show, but which has been very useful for us, actually, surprisingly so perhaps, has been the Wi-Fi hotspot in the Bolt EV. Now, again, something that other cars do offer. It's not necessarily unique to the Bolt, but doesn't seem to be something that has been that prominently featured. and certainly not something that Hyundai has chosen to put in the IONIQ 5. So we pay a monthly subscription, and I think they use AT&T service, but it's unlimited data and goes around the whole car, so we can all use our various devices. Now obviously we do have cell phone plans, but when you're talking about 4 people in the car and having a reliable connection for things like Android Auto, which there's no navigation in this car native, so you do want to have that on tap, and also just the kids' devices, our work devices, all kinds of stuff like that. The Wi-Fi hotspot has really been very valuable, and it's unlimited data, so you never worry about blowing through that. And you can turn it on and off, so if you want to only use it for road trip months through the summer, or only use it in times when you're going to be traveling for work, then it's easy to turn off and have it only when it's going to be of benefit. So that's something to bear in mind if you're doing these trips and you want some kind of connectivity beyond your phone. Bolt has a hotspot, and it's easy to access, reliable, always seems to give us service even in areas where our T-Mobile phones don't. So yeah, it's simple but effective. When you come to storage space, although there's several areas where the Bolt EV does give up the space to the IONIQ 5 and that takes the crown, if you go back to the rear trunk, when you take that false floor out of the Bolt EV, and that's how it comes for some of the trims without that false cargo floor, it's much deeper than the IONIQ 5. The IONIQ has the subwoofer, I believe it is, for the system, the premium sound system, kind of as a little hump, but it's more like a horseshoe in the IONIQ 5, and you have to fit different things around that. Bolt EV, just one big deep space. Now obviously there's less cargo space overall back there because of the depth of how far in you go, how much longer the IONIQ 5 is, and just generally the cargo space is more substantial. But as an option there to kind of pull out that floor and just have something go much deeper down and have more storage out of the regularly used cargo space, that's something that I think the Bolt wins out on in this case. All the kind of things that made the Bolt special in 2017 pretty much continued through to our 2020 Premier model and all the way up to the current day. So haven't had a lot of time in the 2022 models. If you are in a 2022 Bolt EV or a Bolt EV even, share down below what you're liking about the car and what it builds upon from this base of the original design. And if you're in an IONIQ 5, what did you drive before that, and what do you miss from those previous EVs if you upgraded from an electric vehicle? So I hope this has been interesting. We'll continue the flow of videos about the IONIQ 5 and how it compares to our experience with the Bolt so far, where we'll be using these cars, the scenarios on road trips, 2 people driving the cars, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful, and see you in the next one. Cheers.